NASCAR might be making a move that would change the sport forever. I think for good reasons. We'll talk about the good, the bad of what could happen from it. And if it is good and it does change like we think that could happen, we have a team to thanks. And that's 23XI. Let's roll the intro and let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to High Top Sports NASCAR. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. We're on the way to 1,000 subs. You guys have really enjoyed the content thus far. Smashing the like button, subscribing, almost at 200 subs in less than a week, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining this family. We hope to do a lot of great and fun content here, just like this one today. And look, we're going to go ahead and give thanks back right away to one of the comments down below that kind of triggered this thought, that triggered this conversation, that got the ball rolling from Full Sin 22 VCC. Says, so it's possible that we may see an Endeavor or TKO buy out a streak in NASCAR. This comment was to our video discussing the new Dodge Ram series that will be released on January 25th that has Dana White involved with it, where they're going to basically bring in a new driver through your UFC Ultimate Fighter-esque style, where they do a series of races and competitions that bring in the last spot for that new Dodge Ram truck in the truck series, which I think is a great idea, and I'm super excited to watch unfold. So that was his comment. Do we think that we could see an Endeavor from TKO, who owns WWE and UCF, a big firm, essentially, that has bought both of these people out, that have taken both of those companies, which were ran very similar to NASCAR, kind of that very small business, small private owned, kind of ran in their own world. Now they've dipped into the worlds of TKO, which given them more funds, more marketing opportunities, and just a bigger pot to work with, right? Now, one would argue that those are two different worlds in NASCAR, but we'll get into that later on in the show. I've heard that NASCAR may be looking into bringing new investors and sell some shares of NASCAR. Could that court loss affected NASCAR? Could that, to the point where they know the monopoly could go into fire at some point? Now, again, all this is stemming from the Dodge series, that thought-provoking process. Now, what lawsuit that he was referring to is a lawsuit that was settled back in December 15th, about 2025, between 23XI and NASCAR, where 23XI kind of had enough and finally a different type of business owner, right? Somebody that wasn't part of that kind of mom and pop style of, just following the rules and sticking between the lines. They allowed a charter like Michael Jordan with some big time money to come in and say, hey, enough's enough. We're tired of it. We're not going to have to fear of losing our charter every so often because you guys feel whatever you want to feel. So that's why these conversations have started, because this lawsuit was settled outside of court. And sometimes people think, well, it was settled, it was brushed under the rug. Settling allowed for them to kind of move in the way they would like to move, them being NASCAR, right? Navigate this world out past the lawsuit in their own way. And I got to believe that 23XI probably took a pretty a hefty check, but also with the underwriting and probably a quiet promise, if you will, that changes would be coming and that they wouldn't have to worry about these things moving forward. But we're not going to go ahead and hash this out in front of everybody to see the skeletons that are in your closet, NASCAR. So we're going to let you be able to decide what's been told and what's said so we can transition smoothly so we don't completely destroy the sport. Because if we want to uncover the rug here of what's really happening, it could probably get pretty ugly. I'm not saying that there is, but that's typically how these things roll if they're settled outside of court. Because again, at one point, NASCAR felt like they had some leverage. Now, with that being said, we transition into what could be this merger happening with TKO. So they sell off some shares. It's no longer this private equity firm or this small business. They are going to bring in another asset to the table, which is TKO, which could be millions and billions of dollars, which help for a multitude of things, which is more eyeballs, more marketing, all those things. Now, that sounds great, but it could be bad. Okay, so we move away from this control map, this monopoly-esque style in NASCAR, and we move into what good could be bad, right? So more money and more tech, which will be good for NASCAR. Media growth, which I think is a big factor right now, and NASCAR has struggled to really find its footing over the last decade, if you will, and I feel like they've made some good steps thus far this year by going back to the chase and understanding what their core racing fans want. With that being said, and I'm a big component of this, you still have to understand that the sport where your fan base is going to evolve and grow, and you have to find some middle ground. You can't go one direction one way or go back too archaic either. So where do we find this middle ground? And I believe that allowing somebody else to come in will help with that. Just because you bring in an outside firm with more money doesn't mean that's going to go completely into a direction of new age. They may be able to capitalize on what makes the sport great. And I think bringing Tony Stewart back to that Dodge race is just a small sample size of that, right? Stability in the business. What's caused NASCAR to probably make some of these drastic changes and drastic things is because of the instability that the business has have. So they have to take risk in different jumps that may not make sense for the sport, but financially to keep them afloat, it does. So that also too, with some stability, they can make some healthy decisions now without the thought process of like, well, how is it going to impact the bank? There's plenty of that now. The bad only really goes to NASCAR. I don't think for the fans it's going to be, but it's going to be less control. The entertainment over racing is going to be my biggest concern, okay? Now, the one thing I push back on that is UCF is not an entertainment business. It is, but it isn't. Similar to the WWE, which we all know is just strictly entertainment. The UCF, I feel like, UFC, excuse me. UFC has gotten more to just the core of fighting and have done a good job of making it more accessible, right? The fighting aspect, obviously moving from pay-per-view to Paramount. I think that deal with TKO allowed them to make a big move like that. They didn't have to, sink it into this pay-per-view where it was fun to watch, but it got expensive. So that's the positive that I can see coming into NASCAR. Obviously, this past year, and I think we're going to head into it this year, we've had the transition from what channel is hosting it, whether it be on Fox, NBC, Amazon Prime. I'm a big Prime guy, though, okay? Got to be honest with you. That six race series, probably the best six-race series, in my opinion, coverage-wise, last year. But I digress. I'm sure we'll have a whole segmented conversation about that, and if you guys have a thought, let it down in the comment section below. And, of course, core fans alienated. Could we see that happen? Here's my thing. I think, and this could be the optimistic glass half full type of perspective, think about it in a small sense of the form. Think about this Ram Racing series, okay? Depending on how it goes, I think that you're going to take what is core about NASCAR, right? Core about racing, core about motorsports is you have to race yourself to the top. And they're just putting it into a microwave and getting a vacuum out of it, right? Obviously, you work much harder over the years to get there, but they're making this last little spot and microwaving the process of becoming a professional in the sport in a series for us, which I think is great. It's going to open the eyeballs of realizing like, hey, it's not just driving this race car going left. And that's where I think you can expand into a new audience without alienating it. I think you're going to capitalize on both because the newer audience will be able to watch it and consume it and not get just, too confused with it. And then the older audience will appreciate finally like, hey, they're showing what this is all about in a fun, unique, different way. The Netflix series that we have, I think it's an absolute banger. I love it as well. I think that's a good facet to what they've been able to do, and I think they can capitalize more on that. Get the names out there, more personalities. NASCAR has and always will be about the racers and about the fans and about cheering for those guys and putting those guys on a pedestal and wanting to cheer for them. Back in the day, we bought our soda, our beer, our laundry detergent, and what fast food restaurants we ate at based on who our favorite race car driver had wrapped around their car, all right? That's what they got to get back to, is how can they capitalize their sponsorships, connect it back in with the fan bases. That's how they have to go back to selling it to the ad sponsorships as well. So it'll all be interesting. I think that it will be a great partnership for TKO if NASCAR wiggles its way in. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. Keep in mind, right now, Dodge has a huge deal with TKO and UCF or UFC, excuse me, and WWE. So Dodge is the big partner with those three. That's why TKO is trying to help elevate Dodge just in another facet. So Dodge could be somebody that takes over here in the next couple of years as they have a $1 billion marketing scheme or project, I should say, going into just pushing Dodge out as much as possible. So even though it's going to be a fun little series, don't get it twisted. It's a big fat ad for Dodge and its new truck, but kudos to them. It's a fun, creative way. And I got to say, I do appreciate it. So let me know your comments, your thoughts and your comments down below. We're going to drop another video here about, I want to do kind of tier rankings on who I feel are going to be the favorites heading into this year. And then also taking a look at the new junior JR Motorsports wrap for the Tennessee Whiskey. I call it the Buffalo Trace truck, for Justin Allgaier, the race car. A little bit of a different alternative this year. Didn't buy the diecast last year. Love this one. I think the 40 looks, the retro 40, I'm a big fan of. But I love how they put a lot of the old style sticker decals on the front wheelbase. Huge fan of that. I think that a lot of cars should take to that for the rest of the year. Maybe we could see a trend. I think it was the best car at the Daytona 500 last year. I think it's going to be a front runner once again this year, but we'll see if more wraps come out. We'll probably do a little review show on that. Should be fun. But again, appreciate the support. Let me know in the comment section below how you feel about these changes. Could we see a merger? Do you want a merger? Do you want to see some change in NASCAR. I want to hear from you guys. Smash it, like it, do all the good stuff. Boogie to boogie, baby. Peace and love.